4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Welcome to the show, people. Welcome to the show.
Eat my shorts.
So here is to conversation.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
All right, welcome to Cash Exchange.
What up?
So to jump right in, what do Twilight, Nickelback, and M. Night Shyamalan's Avatar: The Last Airbender have in common?
Very polarizing.
They are indeed.
Like you're either Coke or you're Dr. Pepper.
Is anyone pro M. Night Shyamalan's Avatar?
I mean, I'm sure he is.
Maybe.
Dev Patel. He was in it, I think.
Nope.
No?
Nope. Not
Yes,
even close.
he was.
He was not in
He totally was.
Avatar. As who?
I haven't seen it. Because I didn't watch the show.
Well, it was a great show. I have a lot to say about Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Well, we got plenty of time.
Okay, so just a quick thing. The thing that infuriates me the most about Avatar: The Last Airbender is that he mispronounces the names. It's not a book. You didn't just read all of the names. It says them in the TV show 1,000 times.
It's
and
a
he still
reinterpretation.
Mispronounces them. It's stupid. It's so stupid. They used Jasper from Twilight as Sokka.
Jasper. Who's Jasper?
He was the Confederate soldier vampire.
Huh.
The blonde guy. He's with the little emo girl, Alice.
Oh.
Anyway, it's deviating from the question a little bit.
So Nickelback, Avatar: The Last Airbender, and
Twilight.
That dude. Is that what they all have in common?
Man, I wish Jackson Rathbone was in Nickelback. You actually basically got it. I just wanted to go off on a little bit of a rant about Avatar. They are super polarizing works, and they're part of a growing list of things we have to justify enjoying.
Yeah.
Which leads us in to the big topic of the day, which is, can you separate art from the artist?
I felt like doing research for this episode. I felt like I was more on the side of yes, that I could separate it. Like, I mean, I can hear Smooth Criminal in the grocery store and it's still catchy. I mean, I definitely think about all the other stuff that happened, but yeah, I mean, I can still get down to it.
So I think there's, in researching this, because I thought just kind of going in that you would be able to separate art from the artist. And I'm sure there's situations where I haven't necessarily been able to do that, but the question requires so much more specifics, I think, to either the art or the artist.
Yeah.
So there's also a couple different ways that I think the art versus the artist kind of conversation splits. And it's when the artist did something genuinely terrible. And that's talking Bill Cosby, R. Kelly, maybe Johnny Depp. Situations like that versus, say, like Rob Schneider or Seth MacFarlane, where they're just aggressively political people. Like, everyone's entitled to their own beliefs on politics, but it's a little weird if you have this massive platform, I think, and you use it to just push aggressive politics. Like, that's not what your platform is built on or for, I guess.
Oh, I definitely agree with that. I definitely think that I'm in the Ricky Gervais camp of most of you didn't go to school. You're not more worldly than the next guy. Mm-hmm. So why should we care about your opinion just because you get paid millions of dollars to pretend to be somebody else?
That's a fair point.
And this all goes back to COVID and the imagine there's no And it was just so tone deaf and so stupid. And even if it had been the smartest people in the world, which the smartest people in the world wouldn't have done that silliness, but even if it had been the smartest people in the world that knew everything, it still would come across like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah, the kind of idea that everyone has to be their image all of the time is kind of by itself a little insane.
Yeah.
Like that we care as a society what Ryan Reynolds is going to vote in this election.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy that we have so blurred those lines between celebrity as this like kind of God status thing now.
Yeah, and I mean it's so many people, like celebrities mostly. I don't think that it is. I don't think it's any different than how everyone just hopped on Ozempic and then all of a sudden they looked like anorexic skeletons. Like it's all the trend. Like if you're on the fence, then you're gonna say, "Oh, I'm voting blue, no matter who." But that's just because that's what all their buddies are doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what everyone else in the clique is doing.
Because they have careers in the arts. It seems like unless you're, say, Tim Allen, then if you're an artist, you would lean more Democratic.
Yeah. But is it fair for the ones that aren't to be ostracized for it?
I don't think you should be ostracized for that. I think if you turn your platform and the thing that you are famous for, the thing that you make money off of, if you turn that into your political platform, then I think it's fair to ostracize you for it. Like when Rob Schneider got booted out of it was a hospital fundraiser, I think, which is in and of itself kind of an insane premise. They hired an anti-vaxxer stand-up comedian who doesn't really do stand-up anymore to put on a show at a hospital fundraiser. And it went exactly as you think it would. And they kicked him out because he went on rants about vaccines, about gun rights, I think. It was just nuts.
At a show for a hospital?
Mm-hmm. That was, I want to say it was last year.
I mean, yeah, he's definitely gone off the rails. And that's another thing I just saw on TikTok was, what's his daughter's name?
Elle King?
Yeah, she was doing an interview with Bunny.
That's Jelly Roll's wife, right?
Yeah. And she was talking about what a piece of shit dad he was and how mentally abusive he was. And I don't know if it was physical. Mm-hmm. I mean, have you seen the Benchwarmers?
Yeah.
Yeah, did you know she was in that?
No, it was who?
As a little, like, goth girl cameo.
That tracks for her.
But even at that point, I think she could have just kicked his ass. So I don't think he was ever physically abusive, but definitely emotionally. And I think that is going to roll into a lot of what I have for this episode, is that I think a lot of this stuff is all just generational trauma.
Really?
Like Rob Schneider was the butt of the joke, even when he was on SNL. Like you had SNL, or you had Rob Schneider, David Spade, Adam Sandler, Chris Farley. It was those three, and then Rob Schneider at the bottom. And I've always loved Rob Schneider. But
he does have really big sidekick energy.
He does. But he did a great job leading Deuce Bigelow.
And the hot chick.
The Animal is one of the
Didn't really care for that one.
But yeah, I mean he can handle a leading role. The Benchwarmers, kids loved it. I've always loved it.
Yeah.
So I mean but again, it's that attitude that I think he transferred into Elle King, and then Elle King has had her issues with all the stuff, and that's probably rooted in how she was raised with him, and then how he was raised with his parents, and then all the stuff he dealt with just growing up, just being, was he half Filipino?
So specific to the Rob Schneider situation, would it be not to boycott, but would it be fair to kind of kick him out of the zeitgeist because he's turning his platform into something that it wasn't? Like, when he did all of those stupid movies, they're great movies, but they're stupid movies. But when he did, like, all of those stupid movies, and that was kind of how he cut his teeth, is it fair to have said that he's, like, past his prime now because he's just turned his his platform into political finger pointing.
All of them are past their prime.
I think Adam.
All of what I don't. Do they have a name? Did they have a name? Like the Brat Pack
They're
was
not.
like
Yeah.
Rob Lowe and all the John Hughes people.
Mm-hmm.
But
I don't think so.
no, I mean all of them are. But you have Spade. I love Spade. I've always loved Spade, and he is off doing his Fly on the Wall podcast with Dana Carvey, and that's fine because he knows what he's about. He knows that like he's self-deprecating. He knows that he's not the whenever he walks into a room, he's not like the one everyone's there to see. Mm-hmm. But he's still funny. He still appreciates it. And Adam Sandler will pretty much tell you, "Hey, I'm phoning it in because I can."
I watched The Ridiculous Sixth.
Yeah.
That was a real low point, I think.
And he said that he'll sign on to do a movie just to give his family a free vacation to Africa or to Australia or I don't remember where the last one was, but
He did Paris for the second murder mystery.
yeah, and then gives himself all these hot wives: Kate Beckinsale, Jennifer Aniston, Drew Barrymore,
Winona Ryder. We just watched Mr. Deeds. I like Winona Ryder.
That's another one. See, what she did was, it was nothing.
Dumb starlet behavior.
Yeah, it's something that everyone does at some point in their life, but it ruined her career.
Yeah.
And then she had to, I don't even know what she was doing between Mr. Deeds and Stranger Things, but if it weren't for Stranger Things, where would she be now?
Oh, yeah. I guess I don't know what she did between those two.
And like she's in Beetlejuice, and they're making it like a big part of their marketing campaign that she's in the second Beetlejuice because the guy in Beetlejuice isn't in it.
Michael Keaton's not in Beetlejuice?
No, Michael Keaton is.
Oh.
The other dude, the guy.
Alec Baldwin?
No, the one that was married to Catherine O'Hara.
Oh, I don't even know who that was. I was going to say there's two important men in that movie, and it's Michael Keaton and Alec Baldwin.
Jeffrey Jones. Yes. Yeah, he's not in this one because of something we're going to run into a little later.
Ooh.
Yeah. All right, so I don't know how much you prepped for, but who do you have on your list?
So my list is sectioned into the type of art that they create.
Hey, me too.
So I have, as far as books go, I'm not the biggest reader anymore, and I know that if you go back into like 20th century literary works, it gets real dicey real fast. But the one that I wanted to mention was J.K. Rowling, because that one is the biggest part of the conversation today.
That's the most current one, yeah.
There are definitely a lot of options there, but I think that she's the most important one to talk about given the context of this conversation. For music, I have R. Kelly and Michael Jackson.
Hey, me too.
For comedy, I have Cosby and Louis C.K.
I didn't get to comedy.
And for movies, I have Spacey and Weinstein.
See, yeah, I showed my age a little bit with the movie category because I did Woody Allen and Roman Polanski, which I think whenever you think of people that did some very questionable things, like undisputed, like very obvious things have happened in their lives that are provable, and then still be lauded as a hero and as this visionary and this masterful person, is just baffling. And whenever it comes to movies, the two people that come to mind the most are Woody Allen and Roman Polanski.
That's definitely fair. There was another one that I came across in movies. I didn't do too much of a deep dive into it, but it's kind of in the same vein, I guess, as the Woody Allen, Roman Polanski, and it's Morgan Freeman. Because if I'm not mistaken, I think he was in a relationship, or at least had some kind of affair with his step-granddaughter.
Huh.
Which is...
That's gross.
It's a lot of things that make you think that you don't really want to think about.
So his wife's kid's kid.
Yes.
Ex-wife?
I don't know
Or was
on
this
that one.
during?
So it's the granddaughter of his first wife. He and his second wife raised her since she was a child. So, yeah.
I mean, that's Woody Allen.
And that's never in the conversation. Morgan Freeman's still Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, if you need a narrator for something, call Morgan Freeman.
Absolutely.
Or call the guy that can imitate Morgan Freeman for a third of the price.
I've seen Family Guy.
Do you know?
He works for scale.
Do you know how much stuff is credited to Morgan Freeman that he didn't do?
Really?
He pays for them to use his name, and then they pay a guy that it's usually the same person, pay him to narrate or do whatever, and then it's the same thing with Tom Hanks, like with the everything outside of the actual movies, the actual Toy Story movies.
Mm-hmm.
That's all his brother.
Really?
They sound just alike.
Everything outside of the Toy Story movies, like the
video
shorts?
games, toys, all that stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I wonder what level of fame you have to be able to just pay someone to do your work for you.
I mean, I think it definitely takes a lot of money, but then it also takes having a very, like if you hear Morgan Freeman or if you see, hey, do a Morgan Freeman impression, everyone has one. Everyone has a Trump. Everyone has a
walk-in.
A
Everyone's got a walk-in.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's just like you just have to get to that level, and then once you're there, you have to pour your name out.
I hope that, culturally speaking, that we're replacing Morgan Freeman with Sam Elliott. His voice is my favorite. He's the best narrator.
He is. But, I mean, he's right up there with Morgan Freeman, so we could lose him back-to-back, and then what?
It'll be a sad
then
day.
Who do we have?
Do we still have the movie phone guy? Is he still kicking?
No.
Oh.
Definitely dead.
I feel like we should have a moment of silence for these people that probably died a couple decades ago.
No, the Epic Trailer guy, he was maybe a decade ago.
Wait, the Epic Trailers guy died? Like the YouTuber?
No.
Oh.
No, but just the voice. Like
the In a World guy?
Yeah. You want to start off with comedy since I did nothing for comedy?
Sure.
I'll take over music.
So it's kind of hard to go into comedy just because we had a lot of this conversation in the last podcast that we did.
Mm-hmm.
So with Louis C.K., he was canceled for, if I'm not mistaken, masturbating in front of people who were unwilling voyeurs.
Onto his own stomach.
Onto his own stomach. And I think that's...
Which makes it worse. Somehow.
Is it? Is that worse?
Yeah, because then you gotta awkwardly get up and not try to get it all over the place. Or what, you just
Then you go in for the bear hug.
pull it into your hand and just like fling into the trash can? It's so much worse.
Anyway, so that's what Louis C.K. was accused of.
Yes.
And it tanked his stand-up career. Well, it tanked his whole career because at that point he was doing the show Louis for FX.
And like that was what FX was known for.
Yeah.
Was Louis, because that was Baskets had just started getting off the ground, I think. It was maybe like 2 seasons in.
Mm-hmm. I think FX at that point had Louis and it had Wilfred, the one with Elijah Wood as the dog.
Yeah. And Simpsons reruns.
Every Simpsons ever, yeah.
Yeah. I tried that. Did you ever try that?
I did. I watched a decent amount of the Every Simpsons Ever marathon.
I remember when they announced that the Simpsons were going to FX and they were going to do the Every Simpsons Ever.
Mm-hmm.
I planned my entire weekend around it. I think I made it probably a day and a half. And my brain felt like it was mush, and I
believe it.
honestly just wanted to die. But I toughed it out.
That's the thing that I hate most about streaming services. I don't get excited to watch things anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to like plan my day around watching something.
I've been watching this season of House of the Dragon and The Boys.
Boo.
Which one?
To both. I'm in the middle of season 4 of The Boys, and it's just so fucking political.
It is.
It's unnecessary.
It is. It doesn't get any better. But, I mean, at least you know what's weird about it is that it's so over the top, but it's not completely out of the realm of possibility. And I think that is worse than the show being so political, is that they can just do all of this crazy, crazy stuff, and then you'll be like, Yeah, I mean, I can see that happening.
Yeah. I think that it walked the line between realism and fantasy really well for the first couple seasons. And
Yeah.
since like probably the back half of season 3 to what I've watched so far of season 4, it's just been all of the MAGA stuff, and I think they use like libtard a couple times. Like I'm not watching TV so that I can be reminded of all of the stupid shit that's happening around me.
Yeah, but I also think that it's the same problem that The Simpsons fell into. It's the same problem that South Park fell into, is that the fiction or the reality became so much crazier than any fiction that they could have come up with.
That's fair.
And so they can't find something to top it. So instead, they have to just go along with it and put their own spin on what's actually happening.
Yeah.
And I mean, like this episode, spoiler alert, I don't know, it's probably season 5, or not season 5, episode 5. There's a whole plot to murder the president. They send someone to go kill the president. And this was aired. I mean, this was filmed, what, like last year probably sometime?
Yeah.
This aired 2 days after they shot at Trump.
Really?
Yeah, they had to have a disclaimer saying we don't support any violence of any kind. And then they go into an episode about trying to assassinate the president. And so, I mean, like, even a year ago, it was completely reasonable to think that maybe this guy's going to get his head blown off on live television.
Man, I just want to be in precedented times again.
Yeah.
That's all I want for Christmas this year.
Yeah. I mean, I always say that you can always be overwhelmed or underwhelmed. You're never whelmed.
You're really quoting 10 Things I Hate About You right now?
Is that 10? I've never seen.
It's a fantastic movie with your boy Heath Ledger.
R.I.P.
R.I.P.
But no, I didn't. Oh, does he say that line?
It's not him.
Oh. What am I? I think that's with Julia Stiles.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking of Alicia Silverstone.
Clueless?
Yes. Paul Rudd.
Yeah, not that one. Where she dates her stepbrother?
Simpler times, man. Simpler times.
I guess. Weirder times. Anyway, Louis C.K.
We got on such a tangent.
Louis C.K.
But I just wanted to point out that our boys tangent and also my House of the Dragon was that I miss appointment television, and that I made it a point to have Sunday nights at 9:00 open so I could watch the show and nothing would get spoiled. And then the same thing on Thursdays when the boys came out.
I just stay off the internet for certain times, like once the season of something drops, if I know I'm not going to have the time to binge it.
Yeah.
But we have like Monday nights are John Oliver, because his come out on Sunday at 11ish. We had a couple other ones that were out pretty recently. I'm waiting for Abbott Elementary to come back. It's got the kid from Everybody Hates Chris.
Yeah, and he's all grown up.
Mm-hmm. His voice is very, very deep.
Is he getting slapped all the time?
He isn't. It's
Making G.I. Jane jokes?
pretty disappointing. Not yet. I'll get there someday.
But I also have some hot takes on John Oliver, but I'll let you with your Louis C.K.
As a part of this conversation?
Yeah. Yeah. And you want me to just go now?
Louis C.K. did terrible things and built a kind of platform of him, like of his own, where he has his own website and sells his own tickets for all of his shows. And so he's kind of built a brand new thing out of the ashes of his old career. Technically better for him, but I don't know that his career will ever be back to the level that it used to be because of the bad thing that he did. I think that his comedy is always going to be painted with that brush of, yeah, he's funny, but.
Yeah, and I think that what you're known for is also a big part of whether you can weather a controversy or not. Because, like, say that had been Jeff Foxworthy, then he would not be coming back.
Yeah.
But since he has always had these jokes that push the envelope, then it makes sense that Okay, well, yeah, I mean, this is probably something he's joked about before, and he was just getting his inspiration from real life. But no, what I was going to say about John Oliver is that a few episodes I've watched, and I try to catch like the big segment every week. But what bothers me is that he started out on Comedy Central on The Daily Show, and he was a fake pundit. And same thing with Stephen Colbert, a fake pundit. Like, they were telling you real stories, and they were putting a jokey spin on it, but at the end of the day, like, it was a real story, and they were just saying, hey, this is a thing that is happening. Yeah. And maybe look at it from this perspective. But now it's just, hey, don't vote for Trump. Don't vote for Trump. Don't vote for Trump. And this goes back to all this stuff with your, like, why do you think that you are so much smarter than everybody in the room?
I think that that's kind of a different conversation, though, because John Oliver's entire platform has always been political. I think that he's always had the same brand of message. And now that we're in an election year where everything is just banana pancakes, that it makes sense to have those conversations. Vote for whoever you want to vote for. He is drilling the anti-Trump stuff pretty hard, and the anti-RFK. Anyway, Cosby. I think Cosby is one of the most interesting things as far as art versus the artist, because as soon as all of this stuff started coming out about him, which he's a monster, just kind of objectively. Terrible, terrible person. But it's really interesting to me that as soon as all of that stuff came out, that they started pulling all of his stuff off of streaming. So there's no more Cosby Show. You can't find his stand-up specials. I don't think they print his books anymore. And it's the most complete cancellation, I think, that I've seen.
What about Puddin' Pops?
I think Jell-O went through a pretty heavy lull after all of that came out. But it's interesting to me that whenever the cause is so just, and it's a little bit different because his name was on the work. He assaulted people that were in the show.
Yeah.
That, like, I'm sure those people don't want to relive that time. Like, it seems like the right move to not endorse any of that stuff anymore. But I think that's one of those things that you just kind of can't. It's one of those situations where you can't separate the art from the artist.
Yeah, because what about the people who were depending on those residuals from those shows? Should they be punished because of what he did?
That was actually one of the things that I wanted to bring up a little bit later with the difference kind of between artists who make art that's kind of solely under their name. So like R. Kelly's music, Michael Jackson's music. Mm-hmm. There were probably other people that wrote for it, produced for it, whatever. But it's really just them at the end of the day. Yeah. Whereas like Baby Driver, House of Cards, things that Spacey's a really big part of, but nowhere near the only person who affect the production. Because it's harder to say we canceled Kevin Spacey, so we can't watch American Beauty anymore when there's so many other people in that movie.
I think that movie was a lot of red flags, though.
God, that movie is awful. It won an Oscar.
But
it was a different and much worse time.
What I think is pretty substantial in the talks about the art versus the artist is that whenever all this stuff, the Spacey stuff went down, he had a movie that was finished. Color of Money.
All the Money in the World.
All the Money in the World, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so they were able to just edit him out, replace him with a new guy, and then just have the whole movie. I haven't seen it, so I would assume that it's watchable and it makes sense.
It does.
But
it wasn't great, but I don't think it was great to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, so that is where we are now. And so there's going to be a point in time where as soon as someone does something, you're immediately gone. There's not going to be any hangover, anything. Well, at least I can depend on this one last paycheck to come through.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. That's where AI starts getting into the mix, and people are already so trigger happy with canceling people, digging up stuff that you've done, said, whatever. No matter how innocuous it is, if it doesn't match with today's climate, then you're out. But then you also, with AI, you're also going to have the ability for the AI to do the work for you.
So if all the money in the world were to be made 10 years from now, because we haven't mastered the technology of the de-aging and the deep fakes, but we're getting pretty close. And they're going to try to like put out movies with James Dean, Marilyn Monroe, since they're about to go into the public domain. So,
which is crazy that a person can go into the public domain.
Absolutely insane. But could you theoretically make all of the money in the world? Kevin Spacey comes out about Kevin Spacey that he did terrible things. Would you be able to replace him with an AI version of Kevin Spacey and then just pay him for likeness rights instead of being a star in the actual movie?
But then at that point, why wouldn't you just pay him to be in the movie?
Because it still makes a point to basically just cut his paycheck down. I mean, that's basically all that a lot of this is anyway, is if you take away a little bit of their source of income, then it's the only real consequences that you can have in Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like Robin Williams. I was reading a story probably about 2 weeks ago about how he ended up getting the part of Genie in Aladdin. Mm-hmm. And he had done Patch Adams, he had done Good Morning Vietnam, and then he had a relapse. And so he was untouchable back then. I mean, that was early 90s. So if you had any kind of substance abuse problems, no one wanted to touch you. Mm. And Disney comes in and says, hey, can you do this for us? And he did it for pennies compared to what he would have made if he'd done it at his peak. Mm-hmm. And then that resurrected his career, and then he started bouncing back. But he had a joke that Disney would just wait outside the Betty Ford clinic, and that's where they would get the talent for their movies. And it's not just their movie or their cartoons; it's also their movies, because they also had Buena Vista. That was like the more adult stuff. Yeah. That they would also get people. They would get them at their lowest point when they were their cheapest, mm-hmm. and then use them for their name, and then that was it. And then if they had a bounce back from that, great. If not, then move on to the next person.
Yeah, I mean, they did the same thing with Robert Downey Jr. and Tim Allen, didn't they? Mm-hmm. I don't know if they produced Home Improvement, which was his big kind of bounce back into stardom.
Yeah, he was definitely a producer. I don't know if he was a producer in the beginning, mm-hmm. but he had a Tim the Tool Man, like the grunting fix-it man that was completely inept. That was part of a comedy routine that he had that he was doing. Oh. Yeah, so okay. that was part of stand-up. He was doing stand-up.
Oh, I didn't know that. I just know about the that he was kind of on the outs and had the cocaine charges, and then
that sick-ass mustache in Kalamazoo.
Incredible.
Ah, man. All right. Okay. I took a little bit of a different approach to this. I've got Michael Jackson's life from getting the crap knocked out of him by Joe Jackson, his dad, all the way to
Finding Neverland.
Leaving Neverland. Finding Neverland was
Leaving Neverland
was a
Weinstein
Peter Pan movie. Okay, so tell me when I give you a little factoid that you didn't know.
Okay.
Do you know when Michael Jackson joined the family band to form the Jackson 5?
Wasn't he 5?
He was 5 or 6. Yeah. Joe would emotionally abuse him, physically abuse him. He told him that one time he had a big fat nose and would tell him about how ugly he was. And this was a 5-year-old. He took the lead of the Jackson 5 a year in.
At 6 or 7?
At 6 or 7. He was the lead singer of the Jackson 5. By the time he was 7 years old, they were doing shows in clubs, bars, cabarets, places that would have like strip teases, as a 7-year-old.
Wow.
1970, I Want You Back, the first song to reach #1 by Jackson 5. And then after that, it was followed by ABC and I'll Be There. So like 3 substantial hits all in 1 year. Mm-hmm. And so from there, he goes to New York to film The Wiz in 1977. Have you ever seen The Wiz?
I've never seen it, no.
I haven't either. The only thing I know about it is that it was produced by Quincy Jones and that
it's him
Michael
and
Jackson
Diana Ross, right?
is in it. Yeah, that's the only thing I know.
Yeah.
And that it's like Blackula, but for the Wizard of Oz. Okay, so 1978. So we said 1964 that Jackson was 5 or 6 years old. So this is 14 years later. Gets his first rhinoplasty. First from everything I read, 3 or 4.
Okay.
1979, Off the Wall with singles "Don't Stop Till You Get Enough" and "Rock With You" comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And so he is making his way skyward.
Right.
The big one hasn't come out yet, but he's still on a steady path forward. 1982 is when I'm pretty sure it's the number one selling album of all time, came out.
Bad.
Thriller. Is Bad number one? Hold on.
I don't know.
No, Bad was in 1987. Yeah.
Okay.
1982 Thriller sold 70 million copies. I'm assuming that's what this number means. Yeah. Yeah, so 70 plus million copies. So that's when he shot up in the stratosphere, and he could get away with anything.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And boy, did he take full advantage of that. So Thriller was released 1982. The debut of The Moonwalk and the single Rhinestoned Glove was 1983.
Okay.
1984 was the Pepsi incident,
Okay.
where he was shooting a commercial for Pepsi.
And he caught on
The
fire.
pyrotechnics, his hair caught, and it burned his scalp, and it gave him third-degree burns on his scalp, and he had his third rhinoplasty. So somewhere between 1978 and 1983, that 5-year gap, he had 3 rhinoplasties.
Wow. Okay.
Pepsi commercial. Then he gets the chimp named Bubbles.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when people started to take note. They noticed that you never saw him really with a woman. They noticed that he didn't seem to have any interest in things for adults. And he just really seemed like he was going crazy with his money. Because he got his chimp named Bubbles. And then he tried to buy the Elephant Man's bones from a hospital in London, and he threw a
Interesting.
ridiculous number at them, and they said, "Hey, it's not for sale." Which really, should they be owned by anyone?
Yeah. No. That.
Because I don't think that he might have. I don't know. He had a doctor towards the end of his life. He had a doctor that was taking care of him. You know how he died?
No.
He had to sleep upright because
He like calcified,
his
right?
head was so heavy. Yeah, his head fell forward and he suffocated in his
Good
sleep.
Lord.
So tried to buy the Elephant Man's bones. 1987, Bad was released. And then 1988 came Neverland with a carousel, a Ferris wheel, a train with a depot that circled the entire property, a movie theater, and a zoo. All this on one property owned by one man that really never had a childhood. There's been stories of all the things that he did, all the special things they had to set up, like having to empty out a grocery store just so he could go grocery shopping and feel like a normal person.
Mm-hmm.
Which, that's gotta suck. Grocery shopping sucks, but if I'd never done it before, and I saw these people doing it as just a regular part of a regular life,
Right.
then I would probably want that too. And anyways, there were signs leading up to what ended up coming out, what ended up being alleged, because a lot of this stuff ended up being alleged. The proof was either based on a child's testimony, which those are hit or miss. They're impressionable.
Right.
They can misremember things, and the human memory is prone to getting all bungled anyways.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. There was no physical proof until there was physical proof, and then just all kinds of stuff.
I didn't know there was physical proof.
I got it here. So the first sexual abuse scandal allegation came out in 1993. And then that was followed by LaToya Jackson just outright saying, yeah, Michael's a pedophile.
Really? I didn't know that.
And then walking it back and saying that the only reason she said that was because she had an abusive husband that made her say that. Which I don't know to what end.
Yeah, what would that be for?
It would seem like you would want Michael as profitable as possible if you're just a hanger-on, which, you could really consider Tito and the gang hangers-on. Like, yeah, they started with him, but they didn't have what he had, and he...
The only one that really did anything
rode it
else
to the
was
top.
Janet.
Yeah. And then art versus the artist. Showed her boob at the Super Bowl. Boom. Done. Career's over.
Yeah, Justin Timberlake still gets a...
Telling Britney to get abortions and
It's ruining the tour. The world tour.
crying Rivers.
Crying Rivers.
Wanting Rivers cried over him. Okay, so 1993, sexual abuse allegations. LaToya said he was a pedophile. She retracted. Now, this is where you run into a lose-lose situation. So someone makes an allegation against you. Say you've got hundreds of millions of dollars in your bank, and they know that.
Mm-hmm.
Someone makes an allegation against you. There's no proof. They're just saying, hey, he did this thing. There's no criminal cases opened. It's all civil.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that someone do you feel like if you paid someone off, if you settled out of court for X amount of dollars, that would make you look guilty?
Yes.
Or do you think that you paying that amount of money is enough to just to not deal with the headache, get it over with, not have to deal with it, and then move on with your life?
I think that if you are paying your way out of a suit of that nature, that you are trying to get the problem to go away. Because I don't think that a situation like that is so easily solved with money.
What if you are paying it in case something else comes out? Like, say you didn't do anything that you're being alleged of here, but then people start digging into your stuff, and then they're going to find all this other stuff.
I mean, if that were the case, then I feel like it would make more sense to fight it.
Yeah.
Because if you were able to beat a baseless claim, then whenever people with valid reasons to come out against you, they're going to see that you succeeded and maybe have a little bit more pause.
What do you think is the general consensus among celebrities or just rich people in general when something like that happens?
Throw money at it and hope that that's the end of it. I'm sure there's a lot of situations with most celebrities that have that kind of money that it's easier to just throw money at a thing.
So knowing Michael Jackson's net worth at the time, and remember this was just 6 years after Bad came out.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is the minimum amount that should be paid just to make it go away? Like they don't have enough for it, but you just don't want the headache of a trial, all this other stuff. You just pay it and move on with your life. What do you think the minimum is for that?
Ooh, I don't know that I have a good number for that. Are we talking about like what they're asking for in the settlement, or what he's just offering them as like
just a reasonable number that they would be happy with? You're not going to miss. It just wipes all this away, and all that's left are just the tabloid stories.
I'm going to say, based on what was probably his net worth, that $1 million would be a way to settle any scandal.
Yeah, $1 million in 1993.
Yeah.
Well, he settled for $23 million out of court in 1993.
Wow. All right. That's not the look of an innocent man.
And before they made this settlement, they did go to court.
Mm-hmm.
The child testified and described Michael Jackson's genitals to the jury.
Oh.
And the jury, I don't know if it was pictures. I don't know if they just said, hey, Michael, come in and drop them. They compared it to his genitals, and they said they couldn't be, without it, they couldn't positively match them without a shadow of a doubt.
Okay.
Yeah. But then after that, they settled for $23 million.
Mm.
And then whenever all that was happening, before they settled, the police came in and raided the property, raided Neverland. What kind of wholesome things do you think they would find?
The only thing that I remember, because I did watch Leaving Neverland back when it came out, which was at this point, I think 5 years ago.
Yes.
Whenever I watched that, I remember them going into the like hidden rooms and stuff that he had in Neverland Ranch, which is not a good look.
It's not.
You're
a single guy.
Immediately incriminating.
Everyone thinks you're weird as hell because, again, you're dealing with never being able to grow up. never having the childhood to make those mistakes, being 5 years old and immediately thrown in the spotlight and never being able to leave it.
Right.
So that aspect, it makes sense, but you're not helping yourself out by having a room behind a bookcase that you go to with this little boy and doing interviews saying that there's nothing wrong with a grown man and a 12-year-old sharing a bed.
Yep. The
Best thing you can do for another person is share your bed. That's a terrible look too.
Yeah.
No, police found books, large print books. So like for old people, old pedophiles, I don't know. And it had pictures of boys doing activities like sports and stuff.
Yeah.
Just mundane activities in different levels of undress. And then he claimed that someone must have sent it to him. He'd never seen it. He never opened it. And that was that. Yeah, the documentary where he said there's nothing wrong with having sleepovers with minors. Yeah, the documentary that came out that said there's nothing wrong with sleeping with minors. And then later claiming that he was misunderstood came from the documentary Living with Michael Jackson. 2003. So this is 10 years after the previous allegations. 7 counts of molestation and 2 counts of intoxicating a minor. The case finally went to court in 2005, so 2 years later, and he was acquitted of all charges.
Okay.
He died in 2009, and then Leaving Neverland came out in 2019, which, as I said before, had its own controversies. And the problem you run into with this kind of stuff is that there are people on both sides that stand to gain or stand to lose a lot if the story is just tweaked one way or the other. And so you have the Jackson side who want to make sure that like he's dead. So there's anything that came out post 2009 was stuff that had been sitting on a shelf somewhere. B-side that never got used. It was just tracks that were on the cutting room floor. So they have to protect what is there as much as possible to squeeze as much money out of it as they can.
Yeah.
And so they're going to come out and say, hey, all that's bullshit about Michael. None of that's true. But you can't look at all this stuff. Look at all the weird shit that he did throughout his lifetime and say that where there's smoke, a lot of smoke, there's no fire.
Right. It's weird specifically in the context of Michael Jackson because we don't know what psychological damage happened to him. That it's weird to think about in the context of Michael Jackson specifically because we don't know what things happened to him. It's not an excuse for anything bad that he did at all, but it's the narrative around it is so gross. If he did a bad thing, many bad things, and he lost his career, lost residuals, lost something because of it, then I think that's valid. But coming back 10 years after his death to do a documentary called Leaving Neverland, where it's just trauma porn.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of disgusting.
It was like they come back after X amount of years and we'll see these unseen photos of this or see this unseen part of this or whatever, or hidden away for 15 years. It's finally being revealed.
Yeah.
That kind of shit. I would say that's probably the biggest controversy that came from Leaving Neverland. That was the biggest problem that people had is why after 10 years? Mm-hmm. And especially since this stuff happened in the 90s.
Right.
So if it had happened, like if they'd been in the process of making it and then Michael Jackson dies and then they shelve it for a little bit, that's one thing.
Right.
But to release this thing that is going to slam him so hard, his life, his entire legacy is going to be put to the stake, and then he's not around to defend himself. I just think it's disgusting. That's bullshit. Yeah, and it's a way that you can profit off your trauma or profit off having people convinced that this thing is true.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, I had a huge problem with it. I think that a lot of it went into territories that were unnecessary. Mm-hmm. And Like, I get that these guys, maybe they need closure, maybe they need to get their story out. I completely get that. But in a 3-part series on HBO, I don't think that's the way to go, especially after the dude's dead.
Yeah. I had that same issue with Quiet on Set, that it just felt like the conversation was...
Can you believe this thing happened while this show was going on?
It was clickbait surrounding something awful.
Yeah.
A lot of awful things. Like, if Quiet on Set specifically, if that was the way that Drake Bell needed to get that story out, have that conversation, heal from it, then by all means.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was well-intentioned.
Mm-mm.
I don't think that any part of that was done for the right reasons.
No,
and I think that Leaving Neverland was the same thing.
I think the biggest giveaway was at the end of the first episode or the end of the second episode, because I think it was 3, right? 3 parts?
For Quiet on Set?
4? Yeah.
4.
4?
Yeah.
Anyways, end of one of them, it's like, ooh, and this story is coming up in the next episode, and someone sits in a director's chair and they're completely blacked out.
Yeah.
And you can't see anything. And then, ooh, come back for the next episode to see who this is. Oh, it was Drake Bell. He got raped by this dude that was on set with him. Like, that felt super gross, super exploitative.
Yeah. Which so many of the people that were either on it or were asked to be on it for Quiet on Set, like they came out again at the end and were like, this is not what we signed up for.
Yeah.
Or this is not what they told us
like
it
Mark
was.
Summer.
Yeah.
Summers.
And like, I think that it's kind of the same thread that we've been talking about, that we are so involved in our artists' personal lives.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible thing that you do is a terrible thing that you do. I'm not suggesting that we sweep it under the rug, but I think that it's so much more damaging to have that be a part of the conversation. I think it's damaging to have that be a part of the conversation. Yes, that's a full stop. That like, you can be held accountable for the things, but it's a fine line that we do not walk well between holding people accountable for the things that they do and just wanting to be a part of the gossip.
Yeah. Yeah. And what is the penance? Who decides that? Is it the victim that should be able to decide whether someone is allowed to have a career again? Is it the public? I mean, it's obviously not the public, because no matter what happens, people are still going to go. Is there going to be a drop? Yeah, sure, a little one. But for the most part, humans are creatures of habit.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're in the habit of doing this thing, but then they stop because of this person doing this thing, they're going to forget about that relatively quickly.
Right.
So those rules don't translate to everybody, to every transgression. And I get that. I do understand that not everything should be treated equally. But I feel like, personally, with the details that I know, which, I mean, some of them I've looked into, some of them I just know face value. I feel like the punishment is a little excessive to completely lose your livelihood for this mistake.
I think it's a little insufficient to call some of these things a mistake.
Yeah.
I think in some cases, the position that you were in, you would only have access to the crime that you're doing because of the status that you have.
That's fair, yeah.
And so you can't say Matt Lauer. You can't say that Matt Lauer's thing was a mistake. He had a button installed in his office to lock the door.
How do you explain that?
Once you're at a certain level of prestige, it doesn't matter. You don't have to give context for anything that you do.
That's just so crazy. That's one thing I've never understood about that story. Is someone had, Matt Lauer's not in there with some wire nuts and a couple screwdrivers flipping off breakers no. So someone came in, and whether they worked for 30 Rock, because I'm assuming that's where it's filmed.
I think so.
Yeah. Whether they work for the building or whether it's a contractor that came in, I think you should be able to say, hey, what am I doing this for?
Yeah.
Like, what is this going to be used for? And it's the same mindset that H.H. Holmes got away with in Chicago.
Yeah.
He would hire a contractor. They would build up to a certain point. He'd say, hey, you suck. You're fired. Bring in someone new. And then they'd start something else, not knowing that individually, they're all making this murder castle.
Right.
And so I think that the reason that we get into the weeds with who can be canceled and stay canceled and who deserves another shot, it just really seems it comes down to who is the most expendable. Like, if you're replaceable, then okay, bye. And then you never hear from him again.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, there was a culture shift in television that we need more women to be a part of broadcast and to have these jobs that a majority of males have filled.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so Matt Lauer's thing happened. And then all of a sudden, Savannah Guthrie gets bumped up with, what's her face, Hoda.
Yeah.
And so now they're doing the Today Show, and everything's fine. But that's because the climate allowed for 2 women to host this show.
Mm-hmm.
But if the climate wasn't there, then Matt Lauer would have been suspended for 6 months and then brought back.
Yeah, I think that the cancellation is, or the length of cancellation largely depends on what industry you were cast out of. The context around, like, Louis C.K. was that he was in an industry that thrives on cancellation.
Yeah.
They thrive on being the most offensive person in the room. And so you don't get a pass. You still sort of face consequences, but you're able to rebound.
Mm-hmm.
Aziz came back. Aziz's allegations, from what I understand, were kind of bullshit.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
But regardless, he faced consequences and made his comeback.
What is he? He had a show after on Netflix, didn't he?
Master of None. That one got canceled because of the allegations.
Oh. What has he done since then?
He did another stand-up special pretty recently.
Hmm.
I haven't watched it because he's not my kind of stand-up comedian. I don't like being shouted at.
He used
That's
to
neither
be.
here nor there, but
He used to be, but yeah, he's not.
I used to really like his stand-up. I don't remember what the name of the actual thing was, but the one where he's, like, standing with the giant stuffed bear.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that one.
In the suit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's dependent on the industry, because Spacey, expendable. Cosby did a bad enough thing that no matter what industry he was in, he was expendable.
Have you seen the Matt Lauer, or not Matt Lauer, Spacey interview?
With Piers Morgan?
Yeah.
Not yet.
Good Lord.
I, on principle, kind of refuse to watch anything else that Spacey does.
Yeah.
Because this immediate, I don't know if it was an interview or just, like, his statement after all of that backlash, whenever things started coming to light, was, all right, you got me. I'm gay. Like, do you think that's remotely the problem that anyone is having right now?
Dude, it's 2022.
You are super missing the point here. Like, do you think that makes up for
I thought that was
anything?
his get out of jail free card.
Yeah.
Because it used to be. I mean, I don't know if it used to get you in hotter water.
Yeah.
But then I think there was a bit of a shake-up in, like, the early 2000s where if you got in trouble, you could say, oh, but I'm gay. And then, oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Spacey has always had a creep factor to him.
You don't get put in a role like his in American Beauty if you don't have something about you that is just unsettling.
Or John Doe in Seven.
Or John Doe in Seven, yeah. The signs were there.
You ready to move on to Robert Sylvester Kelly?
I did not know that his name was Robert Sylvester Kelly, but let's go.
Much like Michael Jackson. I mean, really, we're going from Michael Jackson was called the King of Pop. R. Kelly was called the King of R&B.
Yeah.
And did you also know that he went by the Pied Piper? That was a stage name of his. Or Kelly's.
On brand. Disgusting.
With a Z at the end. Just Kelly with a Z at the end.
Hmm.
Kelly's. It's like Kellis. the milkshake song girl.
Kellis,
Kellis, yeah.
I think.
Okay, so also, very messed up childhood. He had a friend when he was 8. They were playing by a creek. The friend fell in, got swept up, and drowned when he was 8 years old. It was like one of his best friends. He was sexually assaulted by a female member of the family. It's never really been confirmed, but most people think it's his older sister that would babysit him.
Okay.
From 8 to 14.
Wow.
So 6 full years. He dropped out of school after his freshman year. In 1991, he had his first solo album. 1993, Bump and Grind dropped. You know Bump and Grind?
I do.
Spent 12 weeks at #1 on the R&B Billboard charts.
Wow. It's impressive.
1994, married, you know who Aaliyah is?
Mm-hmm.
Married Aaliyah.
R.I.P.
When he was 27 and she was 15. The marriage was later annulled in 1995. 1996, I Believe I Could Fly was released for Space Jam. And then that is the first time he was sued by a former partner.
I'm sorry, did you say that was released for Space Jam?
Yeah. It was recorded for Space Jam. And then it was big. I mean, it's just like
I know that wasn't the
Seal.
point of this, but damn.
Seal, Kiss from a Rose,
What was that for?
Batman Forever.
What?
Uh-huh. Kilmer, Carrie.
Huh.
Yeah, it was like the big song.
I mean, I was born after those movies came out, so I've only ever heard them in their own context. I didn't know those were from like written for movies.
Yeah. I Believe I Can Fly and Kiss from a Rose on the Grave are like the My Heart Will Go On early 90s comedies and action films. So, 1996, sued for emotional distress from a relationship that he had for 3 years. She claimed stuff like pretty much what everyone else claims later on. He's trying to control what she eats, where she goes, who she's talking to, all this stuff. So that was in 96. He was already starting to show signs of being a little overbearing, to say the least.
Right.
2001, an intern sued him, coercing her into an indecent sexual relationship, is how they phrase it. She was 17 at the time. 2002, sued by a woman he allegedly impregnated and forced to have an abortion. And then right after that one, he was sued by a woman who accused him of making a secret sex tape of their encounter and distributed it through bootleggers under the title R. Kelly XXX.
Yeah.
Just no effort whatsoever. Both those cases were settled out of court. So again, we come back to, I don't have figures on these, but we come back to, does it make you look guilty? Which, I mean, he's been tried and found guilty, so I don't feel like I'm really...
Like you have to speculate on it?
Yeah. But before he had any legal trouble, he's already paying these women off. And so do you think at the time, 2002, do you think that people felt that made him look guiltier or guilty?
Yeah. I mean, it always kind of feels like an admission of guilt if you are settling instead of fighting something.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you have the money to just not have to worry about it.
Yeah. 2002 was a very busy year for Robert. That's when the P tape came out.
That girl was also 15, wasn't she?
I think so. That sounds right. Super young.
Of a problematic age.
Yes. I don't know if they've ever released her name.
If she was a minor at the time, then I would imagine they didn't.
Yeah. That case took 6 years to go to court. Or go to trial. And he was found not guilty on all counts because they couldn't prove that the woman in the video was a minor.
Even if they could identify the girl?
Yeah, they said they couldn't prove it without a shadow of a doubt that that girl was a minor, so he was just acquitted of all charges.
So they just waited until she was of age and said, hey, maybe this was taken just now?
I guess. I mean, it took 6 years to go through the system for him to get in front of a jury.
My God.
2002 to 2004, police found a camera that had lots and lots of pictures of him with underage girls, some with just underage girls, some with underage girls together with other underage girls, and those were taken to the police. He was put in front of a judge again, and the judge said all of that was inadmissible because they didn't have the proper reasoning to execute a search warrant. So even though they've seen these pictures, they're now inadmissible and they can't charge him with anything.
Okay.
And then 2005, Sylvester, Twan, midgets, trapped in the closet.
Trapped in the closet.
Did you know that came out over a 7-year span?
I did.
From 2005 to 2012?
It is an insane anthology.
It is. And apparently there's a whole section that I've never heard.
I was about to ask you if you'd listen to the whole thing.
Have you heard the whole thing?
No. God, no. How long is it?
Why do you say it like that? We used to listen to that all the time.
That's not a dig on that. It's the fact that it's the longest thing you could listen to.
I looked it up earlier today, and it is...
Oh, it's an hour and a half long. It's 91 minutes.
Is that for all the parts?
That is
Is that all 33 chapters?
the big package.
No, that's 1 and 2. And then 3 is another 42 minutes.
All right, so I'm not watching Killers of the Flower Moon worth of Trapped in the Closet.
But you don't want to know what happens 23 through 33?
Nope, I don't remember what happened in 1 through 23 or 22.
This chapter begins with Sylvester and Gwendolyn watching TV and getting a mysterious phone call. The scene then shifts to Kathy and Rufus, who decided to go shopping downtown. Kathy's phone rings and she exclaims, "It's those people again!" Rufus tells her to hang up. Bridget, Twan, and most of the rest of the cast also get a mysterious phone call offering money in exchange for an unknown service.
Yeah, I won't be listening to that. What I will be listening to is our unproblematic king, Weird Al's Trapped in the Drive-Thru.
What about Mad TV / Jordan Peele's
Trapped in the Cupboard? Okay. I will listen to those all day, every day. I can't believe there's no onions.
Oh my God. I'm glad I'm back on a Weird Al kick recently. I guess all he had to do was drop a new music video.
The new polka.
New polka, yeah. So 2017 is when the cult allegations come out, and at this point, nobody really cared about R. Kelly. He hadn't had anything. He was mostly known for the P tape, and that was like the big running joke when you talked about R. Kelly. Trapped in the Closet, which was described as a hip opera, which
Incredible.
is excellent. Did not help his case any, just based on the sheer buffoonery of all of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a classic and it needed to be made, but it's not to be taken seriously. So Sex Cult comes out, allegations come out, and then people were going to Twitter with hashtag mute R. Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
People were picketing his concerts, and he, at the end of his shows, would say, "The only person that can only God can mute me." Which, I mean, responding to mute R. Kelly, I guess that's a good comeback.
Yes, yeah.
But then 2019 comes around and Surviving R. Kelly comes out, which doesn't seem like that was 5 years ago.
No, it does not.
2 weeks after Surviving R. Kelly comes out, his label drops him. All future concerts are canceled, and a video surfaced of him having sex with a 14-year-old girl. And on another note, have you seen the interview that he did with Gayle King?
Is that the one where he like sobs?
Yes,
Yes, I have.
completely batshit.
Yeah.
And just loses his mind, gets up, stands behind his chair, he's yelling at Gayle King, and she's just like, Robert, this is true. Like, there is proof.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, no, man, that ain't me, that ain't me. It was
Yeah.
rough watch. But, I mean, he got caught, like, red-handed, so I think he knew that it was pretty much over for him. 2019, he got some prostitution charges, soliciting a minor who asked him for an autograph. She was 17 years old at the time. He offered to pay her $200 to undress and dance naked in his hotel room with him.
Good God.
And I mean, it's just, I didn't know about this until I was researching all this. 2020, he was attacked by another inmate in prison.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And he was awaiting trial, and his attorney tried to use it as a not a bargaining chip, but a reason for getting him out.
To, like, commute his sentence somewhere else.
Yeah. 2021, he had his trial. He was found guilty of 9 counts of racketeering and sex trafficking. 2020, one of the witnesses to his crimes that was going to testify against him, all of a sudden had his car set on fire. Later on, it turned out that his manager did it and admitted to it and got prison time for it.
Wow.
For coercing a witness, tampering with evidence.
Yeah.
I think it was coercing, threatening, or bribing a witness, along with destruction of evidence. 2022, he was sentenced to 30 years. R. Kelly, not the manager.
I thought it was 20.
He was, I'm getting there. 2022, he was also found guilty of sexual abuse of a child in Chicago on 6 out of 13 counts. And for that, he was sentenced to 20 years. Okay. 19 of those would be served with the 30 years. So at the same time.
Okay.
And then just 1 year after his 30 years is up is when he would serve that 20 years. And then after a year, he'd be out. But he's not going to make it
live
out.
31 more years.
No. And so this is another case of generational trauma that's just being passed down the line because of all the shit that he went through. Friend dying, being molested for 6 years by a female family member. Again, we don't know who it was. But all that stuff, and then he just had to shove all that trauma onto somebody else.
Yeah. I mean, thinking of it in that context, it feels dismissive that, like, Michael Jackson did the things that he did because he was mistreated as a child, which I won't take away from the mistreatment that he experienced when he was younger. But it feels dismissive of the experiences of all of these other people who were traumatized by R. Kelly or Michael Jackson to say that, like, well, they had an incredibly traumatic childhood, so that's just what happens.
Yeah, I'm not diminishing what they've done. Like, they have done some truly disgusting things. They've their actions have and will have an effect on the countless number of people for the rest of their lives. But the only thing I'm saying is that there's a common denominator.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying that because of this, then this. I'm saying that it's just interesting that they all have this thing in common.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not even, I didn't really find too much about Woody Allen's upbringing. Because honestly, I don't get Woody Allen. All I've known about him is the fact that he married his adopted daughter,
mm-hmm.
and that the writers for How I Met Your Mother loved Annie Hall, because Ted Mosby would talk about Annie Hall all the time.
I don't remember any references to Annie Hall.
There were plenty.
I've never watched Annie Hall, though, so it just go over my head.
He has the most nominations for Best Original Screenplay. He has 4 total Oscars. His relationship with Soon Yi is, I don't know if he ever technically adopted her. I don't think he did. She was adopted with Mia Farrow's ex-husband, Andre Previn, and then they split up, and then Mia Farrow and Woody Allen got together. So I don't think that he ever claimed to be an adoptive parent of Soon Yi. But the fact is that
It's still disgusting on an age difference level if it's not disgusting on a relative level.
yeah, she was 8 when they adopted her, which they're guessing because she was an orphan on the streets of Korea and was in a orphanage when she was adopted by Mia Farrow and Andre Previn. And whenever they came to the United States, she was 8, and then a year later they split up. And so now she is 9. And then not too long after is when she gets with Woody Allen, and that's when he comes into the picture. And I've seen a bunch of stuff where they try to downplay it, like, oh, well, I never really had any kind of interactions with him, and it was just this and that and this and that. But I find that very hard to believe.
Yeah, and it kind of feels like the same problem as like if you're settling out of court, is it a sign of guilt? If you have to make those kind of defenses, like, isn't there...
Yeah.
I feel like it means that there's something shady happening.
Yeah, the relationship between Woody Allen and Mia Farrow ended because of Soon Yi stuff. She found nude pictures of Soon Yi at Allen's house. She was 21 at the time, so there wasn't anything like illegal about that. It was just gross.
Yeah.
So that happened in 1992. They split up, and by the end of 1992, Soon Yi and Woody Allen are together. End up getting married in 1997, and don't believe they have any children together.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, this is something that threw me for a loop. Is that in 1992, after everything became public, Woody Allen had to release a statement saying that he was in love with Soon Yi, which it seems like if it's an organic relationship, you wouldn't have to scream it to the heavens that you're in love.
Are you calling out Tom Cruise right now?
I mean, I'm just saying.
Also, it looks like they have 2 children.
Oh, okay. So yeah, all this stuff happened in 1992. 2014, Woody Allen gets the Cecil B. DeMille Award, pretty much a lifetime achievement for movie making. And so I don't know. Is this one gross? Yes. Does it make you feel icky? Yeah. But is it on the same level as all these other people we've talked about?
Gross, but if it happened between consenting adults, then...
See, it's...
I think it's not... I don't know where I stand on this one.
It's difficult because he was there since she was like about 10 years old.
Which feels damning. Immediately.
Waited 11 years.
If you go into the context of waited 11 years, it's disgusting. Like it's I don't know. It is a really gross situation, and I don't think that it's anywhere near the same plane as the other situations, but I would argue that it is still cancelable.
One thing I will say is that they're still together after getting married in 1997. So if that means anything.
Well, yeah, he groomed her.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've had the 11 like formative years to create the person that you want to be, then the person that they become is whatever you molded them to be 20 something years ago.
Yeah, but don't you think it's that kind of person that would get tired and want something new pretty quickly?
I mean, I don't think so. If you're so much of a narcissist that you built this person sort of in your image.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's a consensus that she has no autonomy.
Yeah.
Like, she is solely the wife of Woody Allen, created by Woody Allen for
Right.
Woody Allen.
Which I think is disgusting.
Yeah.
And I think that overshadows any technically not abhorrent things about the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Is that I don't know too much about her, so I won't speak to the person that she is or
Yeah.
her identity, but it just seems like she was created to be one thing, and it was Woody Allen's wife.
Yeah.
If you're raised from age 9 to 21.
But so the Academy of Motion Picture Arts, whatever it's called, obviously can overlook it and give him a Lifetime Achievement Award. Do you think that's right? Because, I mean, really, that's the ultimate separating the art from the artist.
Yes. I think that in that case, you can kind of separate the art from the artist, because I don't believe that the thing that he did was, whether or not it's disgusting is a separate thing. I think that it's not a thing that happened because of his position of power. It was not. It feels like a separate thing that his personal life did, or he did whatever he did in his personal life versus what he did in his films. I think that makes an important distinction.
Yeah. But on the flip side of that, something that was completely against their will and charges were pursued and nothing really ever came of it. Roman Polanski. What do you know about Roman Polanski?
Very little outside of the context of Sharon Tate.
Yeah. They were married whenever she got murdered by
yeah.
the Manson family. She was pregnant with their kid.
Mm-hmm.
He was a World War II survivor, a Jewish guy in Poland. His mom went to Auschwitz. His dad went to a concentration camp, but then ended up making it out. He puttered around Poland for a little bit, then moved to France and then London, and then came to the United States. He was working on a film called The Fearless Vampire Killers, which is a vampire parody film, is how it was described, which
Okay.
is weird because I always heard whenever Roman Polanski, yeah, he did this, but he's just like the creme de la creme of directors and all this other stuff. And to find out that he met Sharon Tate doing a vampire parody movie is
that's surprising, because
was kind of jarring.
my only knowledge of him as a director is Rosemary's Baby and Chinatown.
Yeah, Rosemary's Baby came out in 1968. Chinatown came out in 1974. Of course, 1969 is when the Manson murders happened.
Mm-hmm.
Chinatown received 11 nominations. 2002, The Pianist, which I remember Dad renting, and we watched it, and I thought it was the most boring thing I've ever seen.
I remember watching it, I think, at some point, and I don't remember too much from it.
And it put a real bad taste in my mouth for Adrian Brody until King Kong came out, and then he redeemed himself.
He was in King Kong.
He's the main dude, not King Kong, the main.
Thank you for clarifying.
Human dude.
The only person I remember... Are you talking about the Nicole Kidman one?
That's not Nicole Kidman. Naomi Watts.
Naomi Watts one?
Yes.
The only person I
Jack
remember
Black.
from that is Jack Black.
Yeah.
Because apparently I thought it was Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
So I don't remember her.
Wrong on both counts.
Not on Jack Black, though. I'm never wrong on Jack Black. Anyway.
2002, The Pianist. 2018, expelled from the Academy with... They voted on it the same day.
And you said
18.
Weinstein?
Bill Cosby.
Cosby. Oh.
Weinstein came later. Gross. So, total, there have been 5 people that have been expelled from the Academy. Cosby, which, obviously. Polanski, here.
Was Will Smith?
Nope. 10-year ban, not expelled.
Okay.
Weinstein, Cosby, a guy named Adam Kimmel, who they found out that he had committed statutory rape of a minor.
Oh.
Yeah, so they expelled him. And the first person to be expelled Was from The Godfather Part 2, and he was also in NYPD Blue. His name was Carmine, I don't know if this guy's still kicking it. Carmine Caridi, Caridi. And he was expelled for... So these other 4 people are on this list because they are disgusting human beings and just scum of the earth.
Right.
This guy is lumped in with them because he was pirating screeners that were meant for members only.
Awesome. Great reason to get kicked out.
Oh, and we haven't even talked about the big Roman Polanski thing. 1977, arrested for sexual assault of a 13-year-old. He drugged her and raped her. He was indicted on 6 counts. He was found guilty. No, 5 of the charges ended up being dropped. And the only way they would drop those 5 is if he pled guilty to unlawful sexual intercourse with a minor. And so when it came to sentencing, 42 days in prison, a 90-day psych eval, but he fled to France the day before it was all supposed to go down.
He got 42 days in prison.
He went to London and then went to France where he wouldn't be extradited because he has a French citizenship.
Huh.
And he's lived there pretty much ever since.
What a piece of shit.
So that happened in 1977. So that was after Chinatown, after Rosemary's Baby, after his big stuff. But in 2002, when The Pianist came out, the Academy showed us how they felt by giving him the Best Director. The
Wow,
award was
all right.
accepted by Harrison Ford.
Why Harrison Ford?
Because they're buddies, I guess.
Not even Adrian Brody, the star of the movie?
Nope, Harrison Ford. And then what I found most shocking is that he has a movie called Carnage that came out in 2011, starring Jodie Foster, John C. Reilly,
What?
Christoph Waltz, and Kate Winslet.
Really?
And Kate Winslet said he's one of the most extraordinary men I've ever met. This guy that drugged and raped a 13-year-old.
And then fled the country.
And then fled the country and has been there ever since. Which is another thing that we saw in Quiet on Set is these industry people that will come in and will vouch for you and will give you will be a character witness for you. And whether they like your character or not, they're going to say whatever they need to in order to lift you up enough to where you can at least get your punishment lowered to a minimum. Yeah, he was facing 6 charges, and 5 of them were dropped.
That is horrifying.
And he rarely speaks on it, but he did have a quote saying, "If I'd killed somebody, it wouldn't have had so much appeal to the press, you see, but f***ing, you see, and the young girls, judges want to f*** young girls, juries want to f*** young girls, everyone wants to f*** young girls."
It's a hell of a stance.
And
That's,
in 2019, he appealed his expulsion, and they upheld it. Can you imagine if they reversed it now, like in 2024? They reversed his expulsion, but he still has all of his awards, his Academy Awards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have they ever revoked an Academy Award?
I mean, I don't know how they would revoke the trophy, but I'm sure they could put a little asterisk by their name.
Yeah.
On the official websites. But yeah, I was pretty sure that he won Best Director for The Pianist. And I knew that was after all the other stuff that happened, because it was a big issue. Like, people were pissed, and they should have been.
Right.
Because he didn't face justice for what he did, and then now he's still getting all these accolades. Like, if he had paid his debt, justice was served, and then he came back and he was able to do this post-punishment, that would have been one thing, but that's not what happened. He just ran away and was allowed to just chill in France for 40 years, almost 40 years.
It feels like really bad taste in your mouth that all of these people are still willing to go to bat for someone who was so openly a monster. Like, I didn't.
And then we'll turn around and tell you what you should be doing.
Yeah.
In your day-to-day life, with your body, with your choices with your vote, all that stuff.
Mm.
The same people that are just going to jump on this bandwagon because they think it's going to keep them relevant for a little bit longer.
We put too much pressure on the idea of celebrity.
Yeah.
I don't believe that we should hold them to necessarily certain moral standards. But if you have that kind of closeness where you see them as people that you're willing to look up to or anything kind of in that realm, then it's like if you see them as like friends, like if you saw Kevin Spacey, idolized his life, saw the things that he did as someone that you would want to model yourself after, and you find out all of these terrible things happen, then I think you have a responsibility to do what you would do if it were an actual friend of yours that did something like that. Cut them out. Get some kind of distance. Get some kind of consequence. I don't know. There's a lot of gray area, not with Roman Polanski. That man is a monster, but...
Yeah, and I think that's why he is such a prime example of art versus the artist. Because, I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen Rosemary's Baby.
I haven't seen anything of his besides Rosemary's Baby.
I mean, I've heard good things about Chinatown. And there's also, I mean, that stars Jack Nicholson, and that also has its own host of issues. For instance, Roman Polanski met this girl in 1977 while he was doing a photo shoot at Jack Nicholson's pool.
Really?
Yeah. Do you have anything else you wanted to get into on this one?
Yeah, no, Do you think there is a statute of limitations when it comes to canceling a piece of art? So, take Johnny Depp.
Okay.
For example. So, there's a lot of gray area also when it comes to canceling Johnny Depp. I know he was kicked out of Pirates of the Caribbean. There was a whole lot of fallout.
And they begged him to come back.
Yeah. There was a lot of fallout when it came to the defamation case with Amber Heard.
Amber Turd.
But if you believe that Johnny Depp should be canceled for that situation, is there a statute of limitations where it would be acceptable to enjoy their art again? Like if you don't support Johnny Depp or the things that he did, would it be a certain amount of time when you would be able to kind of separate the art from the artist, or would it just be kind of forever tainted?
No, I think if I had a problem with Johnny Depp, I don't know, that's a difficult one because
you don't think he deserved to be canceled in the first place?
Yeah, do I think he did some shitty things? Yeah. Do I think she also did some shitty things? Yes. But, I mean, and part of it could be the fact that I was already biased going into the whole trial. Like, I watched the whole thing. I watched YouTube commentary on all of it and kept up to date with it. And I think I was probably biased because a lot of Johnny Depp stuff is a lot of my childhood.
Yeah. Okay.
Like,
do you know who Armie Hammer is?
Yeah.
What about switching it to him?
See,
He's
better.
not a part of anyone's childhood. He's
That's
not
better.
any kind of nostalgia thing.
And Lone Ranger. So there's a Johnny Depp tie-in.
Yeah.
His was just weird. Because he was like the sending messages about like cutting off pieces of people and eating them, right?
Yeah. He was also incredibly abusive and controlling. There were people that came out that were in relationships with him that came out with all kinds of things, I believe, whenever all of that cannibalism stuff kind of hit the fan.
I don't know. Because I think that to a certain extent, people are going to, like, people can just have a very controlling, domineering personality. That's usually a lot of, like, upper management, leader type people. So I guess, I don't know, because that stuff didn't come out until after all the weird shit with the eating people stuff came out.
Yeah.
So was it just people trying to pile on? Like, they were fine with it until they saw an opportunity to maybe cash in, maybe get their name in an article. who knows? And that's the sucky part about all of it is that, again, there's so many people that stand to make a whole lot of money going one way or going the other way.
Yeah.
And so you can have a hard time trying to sift through all of it to figure out where the actual truth is. It's usually somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people have their intentions and they're going to be way on this side. The people who have opposite intentions are going to be way on this side. And the truth of what actually happens is going to be right there, somewhere in the middle. And is it going to be leaning one way or the other? It could. Could it be leaning a lot towards one? Yeah, but then there's enough stuff going the other way that there's gray area. And as far as the domineering and the trying to control whoever goes, if it had come out before all the other stuff came out, if it had come out as its own thing, then I feel like it would hold a lot more weight than, oh, look at this shit that Armie Hammer did, and then, oh, but then he also did this.
Yeah, that's fair. And then it also got turned into another trauma porn documentary on HBO.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever watch that one?
I didn't know.
The House of Hammer?
No, because I don't really care. I do. What's his relationship to Armie Hammer? Is that a thing?
Someone got sued over names. I'm sure of it. I mean, his name is literally Armand Hammer. Also, I don't know if it would have been a better example than Armie Hammer, but I feel like it would have been, that conversation could also happen around Dan Schneider, because that one's one of the ones that hits a little bit closer to home for me, because I was raised on all the Dan Schneider shows. I watched iCarly growing up, Drake and Josh, obviously, Victorious.
Yeah.
And that one's a little bit harder in retrospect, just because it's kind of like the Cosby thing, that you see the people who are victims of the person.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they might get profit off of it, but you see them living probably the worst times of their life. And it makes it I think it just kind of burns the whole thing. Like, you can't really watch Drake and Josh now, because no matter what you're watching, you still kind of see it as what Drake was going through behind the scenes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that with the Dan Schneider stuff, so many other people were culpable. Like, so many other people were to blame on top of Dan Schneider.
Yeah.
That makes it even grosser. And not just Dan Schneider, but Brian Peck too.
Yeah.
Like, everyone and it sucks to see Drake's dad go through everything that he went through, trying to tell everyone, hey, there's something up with this guy.
Being the one person that actually tried to vouch for his child.
Being right the whole time and no one doing anything about it.
Yeah.
And then to find out that the person that assaulted his son is the one that he was warning everybody about.
Yeah.
So how are we feeling about art versus the artist? How did you go into it?
I went into it. So I think part of being Gen Z is being so kind of in tune with the cancel culture. And so it's easy to say that you can't really separate the art from the artist, because these people are still profiting off of the thing that they made. I think the nuances lie in when you are using the position of power that you have to do these terrible things, or when you have like just done something so egregious that you should be canceled as a human being, that you should just be no longer relevant to the conversation in any context. Because But with celebrity, like, you profit off the fact that you're a part of the conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that the best kind of consequence that you can have for something like that is to burn your name to the ground. No one is going to think of Cosby for anything besides the horrible things he did for the rest of time. Like,
And
there's...
Pudding Pops, yeah.
Okay, and Pudding Pops.
And he is another one that we should have added to our list of easy impressions.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But I don't think you're allowed to
Most
do
of them. Yeah, I mean,
Cosby impressions anymore.
anytime you hear Cosby from now forward, you can probably guarantee it's going to be an impressionist.
Yeah. But it's, I think that there's still nuance to it, but I think there's less nuance than I thought there was.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
I think that some people deserve to be cast out. They don't deserve a platform. It's, personally speaking, really annoying whenever celebrities use their platform for political means, because I think that's just a separate thing. But at the same time, like, I don't really use social media. So if I were to use social media and I wanted my opinions known on politics or whatever, then, like, more power to me. Anyway, that's all I got on art versus the artist. Final thoughts?
I don't know. I went into it on the fence. I do think there's a difference between... I do think it's a lot easier to separate the art from the artist if the artist is dead. So like Michael Jackson, if there's no more artist, yeah, that stuff he did was still bad.
Mm-hmm.
But now, like, for future generations, this music is just going to stand on its own.
Right.
It's not going to have the association. Like, at some point, it's just going to be a song that's sung by some guy. And then it's going to be a factoid. Hey, did you know this about this song? Because there's stuff like that now. Mm-hmm. Songs that you listen to that are from 50, 60 years ago.
Yeah.
And, it was a different story then because there's not stuff all over the internet. You don't get your news blasted at your face 24/7. So that's going to be different. But I do think that at some point, the artist is no longer relevant to the art. If it's art that is still in the public consciousness.
So as long as they're not actively reaping the rewards of the piece that they made, then it would be acceptable to enjoy it again?
I think so.
Without having to think about the context of it?
Yeah. But, a lot of the context of things are because, Michael Jackson stuff, not so much because he didn't write the music or the lyrics. So his stuff might have been something like a cultural shift,
mm-hmm.
not so much a personal shift. So I think that his stuff, I do think that there's a big difference when they're no longer reaping the benefits of what they've created and no longer able to profit non-monetarily off of the status that this piece of art has given them.
Yeah. The status, I feel like, in a lot of these cases gets stripped pretty immediately.
Yeah, but there's people that still say all those kids are lying. Everything is, they bring race, they bring
mm-hmm.
just trauma, whatever. They need to twist it and contort it to say, well, hey, this didn't happen. This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Just
because of how they feel about the art, not necessarily about the person.
When I watched Quiet on Set, it was a hard thing for me to watch because those were all of the things that I grew up with. I didn't want any of that stuff to be true and to change the conversation about things that I enjoyed growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that it's not necessarily invalid to have those feelings, to want the things that were fundamental to you growing up to be untainted.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it is not something that we can do. It's not a mentality that we can have anymore. because we have access to all of the information all of the time. That like you can't really bury your head in the sand on anything anymore.
So what you're saying is the internet ruined everything. And on that note, hope you're using the internet to listen to this. So if it did one good thing, it brought cash exchange to your ear hole.
This is our contribution to the internet ruining everything.
Yeah.
Peace out, Girl Scouts.
And have the day you deserve.